Have you ever felt like life is happening to you rather than for you? That somehow, no matter how hard you try, circumstances beyond your control seem to dictate your path? What if I told you that the power to shape your destiny has been within your grasp all along, waiting to be unleashed through the most fundamental force in the universe, your own mind? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Today, we're diving deep into a truth that many of the world's most successful individuals understand intimately. Universal control over destiny isn't just some new age concept. It's a practical principle that can radically transform your reality. Think about it for a moment. Has this ever happened to you? You wake up with a certain feeling about how your day will unfold, and mysteriously events align precisely with that expectation. This isn't coincidence. It's a glimpse into the incredible power of your beliefs and thought patterns. The universe responds to the energy we put out, not just occasionally, but consistently and reliably. Your thoughts are not merely passive observers of your life. They are active creators of your experience. They shape the lens through which you perceive opportunities, challenges, and possibilities. What you focus on expands, becoming the architecture of your destiny. But here's where most people go wrong. They underestimate just how profound this influence really is. Stay with me until the end, because the practical applications of this understanding go far beyond positive thinking platitudes. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how you navigate every aspect of your existence. Your belief system functions like an operating system for your life. Just as a computer can only run programs compatible with its operating system, you can only manifest experiences that align with your core beliefs about yourself and the world. When you truly grasp this concept, you'll understand why some people seem to effortlessly attract success, while others remain trapped in cycles of limitation. The quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life, but not in the superficial way most people understand. It's not about forcing yourself to think positive when everything feels wrong. It's about recognizing that your thought patterns create electromagnetic frequencies that literally shape the physical world around you. What you're about to discover might surprise you, especially when we examine how specific thought patterns can either unlock or block your access to universal abundance. The science behind this is fascinating. Quantum physics has demonstrated that observer expectation directly influences particle behavior at the subatomic level. This is just the beginning of understanding the extraordinary relationship between your consciousness and your destiny. Your individual beliefs don't just influence your personal choices. They actually interact with the fabric of reality itself. If this message is opening something in you, subscribe now and turn on the bell. Join a community that practices surrender, alignment, and conscious creation, one new insight at a time. The power of resonance isn't just a spiritual concept. It's actually backed by science. When we talk about attracting certain energies, what we're really describing is a fundamental principle that operates throughout the universe. Think about how a tuning fork works. Strike one tuning fork and another nearby fork with the same frequency will begin to vibrate in harmony with it. This is exactly what happens on an energetic level with our thoughts and emotions. What makes this truly fascinating is how our internal state creates a unique energetic signature. The thoughts you hold consistently, the emotions you marinate in daily, these aren't just subjective experiences happening inside your mind. They're generating actual vibrational frequencies that extend beyond your physical body. It's why when you enter a room where people have been arguing, you can often sense that tension even if nobody says a word about it. The transformational journey begins when you recognize that you're not simply a passive observer in your life, but an active participant in its creation. This awakening can be both exhilarating and somewhat overwhelming. Suddenly, the realization hits that many of the circumstances in your life, both desired and unwanted, have been influenced by your own energetic output. I discovered this hidden truth during a particularly challenging period in my life. Nothing seemed to be working out, and I found myself constantly focusing on what was going wrong. It was like living in a perpetual state of disappointment. The revelation came when I began to notice how my expectations were actually shaping my experiences. I wasn't just observing negative outcomes, I was unconsciously contributing to them. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by explaining what happens during the awakening to co-creation. This is when you begin to view yourself as a partner with the universe rather than someone things simply happen to. It's a profound shift in perspective that changes everything about how you navigate your life journey. Co-creation means acknowledging that while you don't control every external circumstance, you do influence the opportunities that present themselves through your state of being. It's like learning to dance with life instead of fighting against it. You begin recognizing the subtle ways the universe responds to your energy, not just your actions or words. What's particularly interesting is how this awareness changes your relationship with time. When you're consciously co-creating, you start noticing how quickly certain things manifest while others take longer. This isn't random, it's often related to your level of alignment and the beliefs you hold about what's possible for you. The mindset shift required here is substantial. You move from seeing yourself as someone trying to make things happen to someone who is allowing things to unfold while maintaining clear intention. This subtle distinction makes all the difference in how events materialize in your experience. Many people miss this crucial aspect of the law of attraction. They focus intensely on specific outcomes without addressing their overall vibrational state. It would be like trying to grow a particular flower while ignoring the quality of the soil. The environment, your energetic state, is what ultimately determines what can flourish in your life. The impact of this understanding goes far beyond just manifesting material things. It completely transforms how you process challenges and setbacks. Instead of viewing them as evidence that the universe isn't supporting you, you begin to see them as feedback, information about where your energy might be misaligned with your stated desires. If you've been exploring these concepts and finding they resonate with your own experiences, write in the comments, "I'm awakening to co-creation." This simple acknowledgement can be powerful in solidifying your commitment to this new way of engaging with life. Beyond those fleeting glimpses of awakening I mentioned, I discovered something truly remarkable during a 7-day journey that completely shifted my understanding of manifestation. This wasn't your typical spiritual retreat or seminar. It was an immersive experience that stripped away my preconceptions about how energy works in our daily lives. For those first 3 days, I struggled. My mind fought against the simplicity of what I was learning. We've been conditioned to believe that manifestation requires complex rituals, perfect visualizations, or unwavering faith. But what I discovered was far more accessible, yet paradoxically more profound. Ready to co-create your reality? Hit subscribe and enable notifications. Every day we drop practical tools to tune your frequency, spot the signs, and manifest with clarity. By day 4, something clicked. I realized that manifestation isn't about forcing outcomes, but about aligning with a natural flow that's already moving through our lives. The breakthrough came when I stopped trying to manipulate reality and instead began recognizing the patterns already unfolding around me. The universe speaks to us constantly through synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that make you pause and wonder. That song that plays exactly when you're thinking about a specific person. The random book recommendation that addresses precisely what you've been struggling with. The chance encounter that leads to an opportunity you couldn't have planned. These aren't random occurrences. They're feedback from a responsive universe, showing you where energy is already flowing in your life. Most people dismiss these signs as mere coincidence, but they're actually breadcrumbs leading you toward alignment. When you start paying attention to these subtle nudges, you begin to recognize the invisible threads connecting seemingly unrelated events. What makes synchronicities so powerful as manifestation tools is that they bypass our logical minds. They speak directly to our intuition, to that part of us that recognizes truth without needing to analyze it. This is where the real transformation begins, not in forcing outcomes, through sheer willpower, but in developing a relationship with an intelligent universe that's already communicating with you. I remember sitting in a cafe on the 5th day of that journey, journaling about what I wanted to create in my life. As I wrote, a stranger at the next table received a phone call and began discussing, word for word, the exact project I had just been writing about. The hairs on my arms stood up. This wasn't coincidence, it was confirmation. The hidden truth, most manifestation. Teachers miss is that we're not separate from the universe, trying to bend it to our will. We're expressions of it, learning to dance with its rhythms. When you understand this fundamental shift in perspective, manifestation becomes less about acquisition and more about recognition, recognizing the signs that you're already on the right path. This revelation completely transformed my approach. Instead of forcing myself through rigid visualization practices or affirmations that felt empty, I began cultivating awareness of the synchronistic patterns already emerging in my life. I started keeping a synchronicity journal, noting every meaningful coincidence, no matter how small. Over time, these coincidences increased in frequency and significance, creating an ongoing dialogue between my intentions and the world around me. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how anyone can develop this synchronistic awareness in their daily life, regardless of their spiritual background or beliefs. Because once you understand how to read these universal signals, you'll never experience manifestation the same way again. If this perspective on synchronicity resonates with your own experiences, write "I see the signs" in the comments below. I'm curious to know if you've been noticing these patterns in your own life too. One of the most profound examples I ever encountered was merchant Clarence from Bristol. For years, his small shop struggled to compete with larger establishments in the city centre. When I first met him, his face was etched with worry lines, and his conversation revolved entirely around not enough customers and too much competition. During our discussions about the nature of manifestation, I suggested a radical experiment. What if, I proposed, instead of seeing your shop as struggling, you began to truly see it as prosperous, even before the evidence appears? Clarence thought I was speaking nonsense at first, but something about the idea resonated with him, and he committed to trying this shift in perception for 30 days. Each morning before opening his shop, he would stand in the empty space and visualize it filled with customers. He would run his hands over his ledger books and see them filled with profitable entries. Most importantly, he began to feel genuine gratitude for his business, not as it currently was, but as he desired it to be. The transformation wasn't immediate, but by the second week, something remarkable began occurring. Customers who hadn't visited in years suddenly returned. A wealthy merchant from London happened to stop by during a journey and placed a substantial order. By month's end, Clarence's shop was experiencing a level of abundance that even he had difficulty believing. When I visited him 3 months later, I barely recognized him. The worry lines had softened, replaced by the glow of someone who had discovered a profound truth. It wasn't about the business changing, he told me, with quiet certainty. It was about me changing how I perceived the business. The rest followed naturally. This principle extends beyond material prosperity, touching every aspect of human experience. Consider Hattie, a woman who had spent nearly a decade searching for meaningful connection. Despite countless introductions and social engagements, she remained profoundly lonely, convinced that true partnership would always elude her. During our conversations about the nature of manifestation, I suggested she try something counterintuitive. Rather than focusing on the absence of a partner, what if she began practicing the feeling of joyful anticipation? What if she allowed herself to experience the emotions of being loved, even before meeting the person who would love her? Hattie embraced this practice with remarkable dedication. Each evening, she would sit quietly and imagine the feeling of sharing her day with someone who truly understood her. She would walk through the park and silently share her observations with her yet-to-arrive companion. She even began setting her table for two, allowing herself to feel the warmth of shared meals. The inner shift created ripples in her external reality. Within weeks, her interactions with others began changing subtly. She found herself drawn to new places, new conversations, and then, in a moment she describes as both surprising and utterly natural, she met Thomas, a man whose presence in her life seemed to perfectly reflect the partnership she had been inwardly cultivating. This reveals something crucial about the manifestation journey. It's never simply about attracting external circumstances. It's about becoming the person who naturally experiences those circumstances. The hidden truth is that we don't attract what we want, we attract what we are. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how these principles operate at the level of our everyday decisions. You see, manifestation isn't some mysterious force separate from our normal lives. It functions through the seemingly mundane choices we make, moment by moment. These choices, often overlooked, become the building blocks of our reality. What I've discovered through years of observation is that most people remain unaware of the subtle energetic signature behind their decisions. They make choices from habit or fear, without recognizing how those choices are shaping their experience in profound ways. When we begin paying attention to the feeling tone behind our actions, we unlock an entirely new dimension of creative power. If you're recognizing patterns in your own life where your thoughts and feelings have shaped your reality either positively or negatively, write in the comments, "I've seen this pattern in my life." This whole concept becomes even more fascinating when we consider the scientific perspective. Quantum physicists have been exploring how observation affects reality at the subatomic level, suggesting that consciousness itself might play a role in how our universe functions. When we direct our thoughts consistently towards specific outcomes, we're essentially training our brains to recognize opportunities aligned with those thoughts. Remember that time when you couldn't stop thinking about buying a certain car and suddenly you started seeing that exact model everywhere? That's your reticular activating system at work, the part of your brain that filters information based on what you've deemed important. It's not that those cars weren't there before. Your brain simply wasn't prioritizing that information until you gave it significance through your focused thoughts. The transformation happens in subtle ways at first. Many people expect immediate dramatic results when they begin aligning their thoughts with their desires. But the journey typically begins with small shifts in perception. You might notice unexpected opportunities arising, or find yourself having conversations that lead to new connections relevant to your goals. These seemingly random occurrences are often the universe's first responses to your thought patterns. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how we can actually practice this mindset shift through meditation. The power of meditation in this context isn't just about relaxation. It's about deliberately creating a state where your thoughts and feelings come into perfect alignment with your desired outcomes. When you sit in meditation, begin by focusing on your breath, allowing your mind to settle. Once you feel centered, bring to mind one specific desire or intention. Rather than merely visualizing what you want, the key is to generate the authentic emotional state you would experience if that desire were already fulfilled. This emotional resonance is what creates the magnetic pull toward manifestation. For example, if you're seeking financial abundance, don't just picture money or wealth symbols. Instead, evoke the feeling of security, freedom, and generosity that this abundance would bring. Feel the relief of bills being paid effortlessly, the joy of being able to help others, the peace of mind that comes with stability. Hold this feeling for at least 5 to 7 minutes, allowing it to saturate your entire being. The hidden truth here is that your emotional state serves as a powerful broadcast signal. When you consistently maintain feelings aligned with your desires, you're essentially telling both your subconscious mind and the universe what experiences to bring your way. This isn't just positive thinking, it's a deliberate reprogramming of your internal filters and external attraction points. Many people miss this crucial element in their manifestation practice. They focus intensely on what they want, but continue to feel anxiety, doubt, or frustration, emotions that actually contradict their stated desires. Your feelings are the true language of manifestation, more powerful than your words or even your thoughts. This practice requires patience and consistency. Just as you wouldn't expect physical muscles to develop after a single workout, your manifestation muscles also need regular exercise. The revelations come gradually as you begin to notice the correlation between your consistent emotional states and the experiences that follow. What's particularly interesting is how this practice begins to reveal your subconscious blocks. You might discover that while you consciously desire success, there's a part of you that fears the responsibility or visibility that comes with it. These discoveries are invaluable gifts on your journey, as they show you exactly what internal work needs your attention. If you're resonating with these insights about emotional alignment and manifestation, drop a comment saying, "I'm tuning my frequency." I'm curious to hear about your experiences with this approach. This energy of confidence, this sense of already possessing what you desire, isn't just positive thinking. It's a conscious restructuring of your vibrational frequency. When you operate from a position of gratitude for something not yet physically present, you're essentially telling the universe, "I trust so deeply in this outcome that I'm celebrating it now." This is the hidden mechanism behind what many call manifestation. Let me share something profound about gratitude. Most people think of gratitude as an appropriate response after receiving something, but masters of manifestation flip this equation. They understand that gratitude is actually the magnetic force that draws experiences to you. When you feel genuine gratitude for something as if it's already happened, you collapse time in a fascinating way. You bring the future into your present awareness. Consider the journey of Roy, an artist I worked with several years ago. Roy had technical talent but struggled to gain recognition. His paintings sat in galleries without buyers, and his confidence was eroding with each passing month. During our sessions, I noticed something crucial. Roy was creating from a place of desperation, painting what he thought would sell rather than what stirred his soul. The transformation began when Roy stopped chasing external validation and reconnected with his original purpose. He started painting scenes from his childhood home in rural Oregon, landscapes that held deep emotional resonance for him. The shift was remarkable, not just in the quality of his work, but in how he carried himself. He spoke about his new collection with such certainty, such inner knowing, that you'd think he'd already sold every piece. And here's the revelation. Within 3 months, Roy had his first sold-out show. Collectors responded to the authenticity radiating from his work. When I asked what changed, he said, "I stopped trying to become successful. In my mind, I already was. I painted with gratitude for the gift of expression, not with fear of rejection." Roy's breakthrough illustrates a fundamental truth about this process. The external shift follows the internal one. The universe doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you are being. When you embody the feeling state of your desire fulfilled, you create a pathway for its physical manifestation. This principle works across every dimension of life. Think about relationships. Have you noticed how people who desperately need love often struggle to find it, while those who feel complete within themselves naturally attract meaningful connections? This isn't coincidence, it's energy alignment. The journey toward manifestation requires this paradoxical mindset, acting as if what you want is already yours while remaining detached from precisely how it shows up. This is where many people encounter roadblocks. They become so fixated on a specific outcome that they miss the various ways the universe might deliver their essence desire. I've witnessed countless transformations where people finally received what they'd been seeking only after they released their death grip on how it had to appear. It's like ordering a meal at a restaurant. You specify what you want, but you don't go into the kitchen to micromanage the chef. You trust in the process while anticipating the result. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how our subconscious beliefs create invisible boundaries around what we allow ourselves to receive. Because here's the truth: manifestation isn't just about what you consciously affirm. It's about the deeper programming running beneath your awareness. Many people sincerely practice visualization and affirmation, but remain frustrated because they haven't addressed the underlying beliefs contradicting their desires. If this resonates with your experience, type "inner alignment" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have noticed this disconnection between what you consciously want and what your subconscious seems to be allowing into your life. Confidence truly radiates from the inside out. It's like having this inner lighthouse that guides not just you, but attracts others who sense your certainty. I've witnessed this transformation countless times with clients who initially came to me feeling stuck or invisible in their careers and relationships. The moment they began treating themselves differently, speaking with conviction, maintaining eye contact, straightening their posture, the external world responded accordingly. This isn't some mystical manifestation. It's a practical, psychological principle. When you genuinely believe in your capabilities, you take bolder actions. You apply for positions you might have previously considered out of reach. You share ideas in meetings without second-guessing yourself. You set boundaries in relationships that honor your worth. These micro-decisions accumulate into a completely different life trajectory. The journey to authentic confidence involves confronting those whispers of self-doubt that we've internalized, often since childhood. Remember those limiting beliefs we discussed earlier? They're the invisible architecture constraining your potential. The remarkable revelation is that these mental constructs can be dismantled and rebuilt. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by sharing Lillian's powerful story about gratitude and abundance. Lillian was a client who came to me during a particularly challenging chapter in her life. She'd lost her corporate position during company-wide layoffs and was struggling financially while trying to launch her own consulting business. Rather than focusing exclusively on aggressive networking and marketing strategies, we implemented something seemingly simple but profoundly effective: a daily gratitude practice. Each morning, Lillian would document 5 specific things she felt genuinely grateful for in her business journey, no matter how small. Some days it was as basic as, "I'm grateful I have a laptop to work on," or "I'm thankful for the free workshop that taught me about email marketing." What began as a mindset exercise evolved into something truly remarkable. Within 3 months, Lillian noticed an unmistakable pattern. The areas she consistently expressed gratitude for seemed to multiply in her reality. By appreciating the 2 clients she had, she suddenly found herself with 5. By showing gratitude for her modest home office space, she unexpectedly received an invitation to share a premium co-working space at a fraction of the normal cost. The hidden mechanism behind this abundance wasn't mystical. Her heightened awareness made her more receptive to opportunities she might have previously overlooked. The science behind gratitude's impact on our perception is fascinating. Neuroscientists have discovered that regular gratitude practices actually reshape our neural pathways through neuroplasticity. This means we're literally rewiring our brains to recognize positive patterns and possibilities. This cognitive shift creates a powerful ripple effect that influences not just how we feel, but how we function in the world. What Lillian's experience reveals is something I've observed repeatedly with clients across different backgrounds and ambitions. Gratitude doesn't just change your emotional state, it transforms your relationship with abundance itself. Instead of operating from scarcity, constantly feeling that there's never enough time, money, or opportunities, you begin to perceive the wealth that already exists in your life. This perspective shift functions as both a compass and catalyst for further growth. When you recognize and appreciate the resources at your disposal, whether they're skills, relationships, or material assets, you utilize them more effectively. You become more creative with what you have, rather than paralyzed by what you lack. This resourcefulness often leads to innovative solutions that might never have emerged from a scarcity mindset. If something in this message resonates with your own experience, write in the comments, "Gratitude creates abundance." I'd love to hear how this principle has shown up in your own life journey. Let's make a profound shift now. When our minds constantly dwell on what we lack, we're actually programming our subconscious to continue manifesting that very scarcity. It's like setting your GPS to Scarcityville and wondering why abundance keeps eluding you. This mental orientation becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that many never recognize they're creating. Think about the hidden mechanics at work here. The universe doesn't distinguish between positive and negative attention. It simply responds to what occupies your mental space. When you obsess over bills, debt, or financial struggles, you're inadvertently strengthening that energy pattern in your life experience. This is why people caught in lack-based thinking often find themselves in recurring cycles of the same problems, despite their conscious desires for something different. Gratitude, however, creates a remarkable transformation in this dynamic. When you genuinely appreciate what you already have, even if it seems modest compared to your aspirations, you're sending powerful signals that reshape your relationship with prosperity. This isn't merely positive thinking. It's about aligning your energetic frequency with the abundance that already exists around you. I discovered this principle during my own financial wilderness years. Despite constant striving, my breakthrough only came when I began a daily practice of acknowledging the resources, opportunities, and support I already had. Within months, unexpected doors opened that my previous scarcity mindset had rendered invisible to me. The revelation here is that gratitude doesn't just change your attitude, it literally changes what you can perceive and receive. When you train yourself to recognize abundance in its many forms, you develop what I call prosperity vision, the ability to spot opportunities that others miss entirely. This practice requires authentic engagement. Set aside time each day for genuine reflection on what you appreciate. This isn't about forcing false positivity, but rather about recognizing the truth of what's already supporting you. Consider the resources at your fingertips, the knowledge you've gained, the relationships that sustain you, even your capacity to learn and adapt. These are all forms of wealth that many overlook, As you cultivate this mindfulness around appreciation, you'll notice subtle shifts in how you experience daily life. Challenges don't disappear, but your relationship to them transforms. You begin operating from a foundation of sufficiency rather than desperation, which fundamentally changes the energy you bring to opportunities and interactions. What's particularly powerful about this approach is how it redirects your focus from external circumstances, which often feel beyond your control, to your internal relationship with life itself. This represents a profound shift in personal agency. Rather than waiting for external conditions to change before you can feel abundant, you reclaim your power to establish that feeling state regardless of current circumstances. This internal shift creates ripples in your external reality. As you consistently align with gratitude, you'll notice synchronicities increasing, the right people, ideas, and opportunities appearing with strange timing. This isn't magical thinking, it's simply that your receptivity has expanded through your practice of appreciation. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this principle can be applied systematically to create not just occasional abundance, but a sustainable prosperity consciousness that weathers life's inevitable ups and downs. This approach requires understanding certain universal principles that govern how energy flows in response to our focused attention. If what I'm sharing resonates with your own experiences or intuitions about abundance, write in the comments, "Abundance begins within," so we can identify others walking this same path of transformation. These stories of surrender offer powerful lessons about trusting life's journey. When Merchant Pearl lost everything in that shipwreck, he faced a profound transformation moment. There he stood on the shore, watching his life's work sink beneath the waves. His immediate instinct? Control. Fix. Restore what was lost. But sometimes the universe has other plans that our limited perspectives can't comprehend. What makes Pearl's story so compelling is that moment of revelation, when he realized that his desperate grip on outcomes was the very thing blocking his path forward. By finally opening his hands and saying, "I surrender," he wasn't giving up. He was giving over. There's a fundamental difference there that many of us miss in our own lives. The hidden truth behind surrender isn't weakness. It's actually profound strength. It requires more courage to release control than to maintain it. What Pearl discovered through his journey wasn't just a new business opportunity, but a completely different relationship with uncertainty. When he stopped fighting the current, he found himself carried to shores far more abundant than those he'd originally charted. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic with Victor's story, which reveals another dimension of surrender. Victor's path demonstrates how surrender sometimes means accepting an unexpected calling. His comfortable life as a city accountant represented security and predictability, the very things our society tells us to value above all else. But that inner voice wouldn't quiet down. His decision to leave everything behind wasn't reckless abandonment. It was a conscious choice to honor a deeper wisdom. What fascinates me about Victor's journey is how surrender created space for synchronicity. Those coincidences that led him to the remote village weren't random. They were breadcrumbs, appearing precisely because he'd created space for them by letting go of his predetermined path. The revelation here is profound. When we release our white-knuckle grip on how we think our lives should unfold, we open ourselves to possibilities beyond our limited imagination. Victor couldn't have planned the series of events that led him to creating that sustainable farming community. His blueprints would have been too small, too constrained by what he already knew. This isn't just spiritual philosophy, it's practical wisdom for navigating our complex lives. Think about your own experiences. Haven't your most meaningful breakthroughs often come when you finally stopped forcing solutions? when you exhausted your own resources and had no choice but to trust something larger than yourself. The impact of true surrender ripples outward in ways we can't predict. For Victor, his personal act of letting go eventually transformed an entire community. For Pearl, it created a legacy that would outlive him by generations. Their stories remind us that surrender isn't just about personal peace. It's about creating space for something larger to emerge through us. What makes surrender so challenging in our modern context is our addiction to certainty. We've been conditioned to believe that security comes from control, when often the opposite is true. Real security comes from developing the flexibility to dance with life's uncertainties, to bend without breaking when the winds of change blow strongly. Both Pearl and Victor face that moment of truth, that precipice where letting go feels like falling. Yet in that supposed falling, they discovered they had wings. Their journeys mirror the hero's path that humans have been walking for millennia, the call to venture beyond the known, to trust the wisdom of uncertainty. If these stories resonate with you on a deep level, type "I'm ready to surrender" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you are feeling that inner nudge toward letting go of something that no longer serves you, something you've been trying to control that perhaps needs to be released. When we speak of trust as a practice, we're really discussing a fundamental shift in how we engage with life itself. This isn't just about blindly believing things will work out. It's about developing a profound understanding that the universe has its own rhythm, its own intelligence that operates whether we acknowledge it or not. Think about water for a moment. Water doesn't struggle against the riverbed. It simply flows around obstacles, finding the path of least resistance. The journey continues regardless of what stands in its way. This natural flow exists in our lives too, beneath our anxieties and control mechanisms. I've found that embracing trust isn't a passive surrender, but an active realignment with this universal current. It's acknowledging that while we can paddle and steer our boats, the river itself has a direction and power beyond our making. The remarkable transformation happens when we begin to understand that our resistance, our constant fighting against what is, creates most of our suffering. I remember a period when I was desperately trying to force a particular outcome in my career. The harder I pushed, the more exhausted and frustrated I became. It wasn't until I relaxed my grip and allowed myself to be carried by opportunities I hadn't even considered that everything began to shift in unexpected and beautiful ways. This doesn't mean abandoning your desires or goals. Rather, it means holding them with open hands instead of clenched fists. This openness creates space for possibilities you couldn't have imagined. It's the difference between demanding the universe bend to your will versus dancing with it as a collaborative partner. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by sharing some practical daily affirmations that have helped me cultivate this trust. These aren't just pretty phrases to repeat mindlessly. They're powerful redirections for your consciousness, seeds planted in the fertile soil of your awareness that gradually bloom into lived experience. Each morning, before the world's demands flood in, try saying, "I trust the timing of my life." Feel those words. Let them resonate not just in your mind, but in your body. Notice any resistance that arises. That's where your work lies. Another powerful affirmation is, "I am exactly where I need to be." This one challenges our constant feeling that happiness is somewhere else, in some future achievement or circumstance. It anchors you in the present moment, which is the only place where real life occurs. I release the need to control outcomes might be the most challenging yet transformative affirmation for many of us. This isn't about becoming passive, but about acknowledging the profound truth that many factors beyond our control influence results. Your responsibility is the action, not the outcome. I am open to receiving in unexpected ways. Invite surprise and wonder back into your life. It keeps you alert to opportunities that might arrive in packages you wouldn't have recognized as gifts. The beauty of these affirmations lies in their simplicity and their power to gradually rewire deeply ingrained thought patterns. They create new neural pathways that, with consistent practice, become your default way of engaging with life's uncertainties. What makes these affirmations effective isn't just saying them, but embodying them throughout your day. When faced with uncertainty, remind yourself of these truths. When anxiety rises, return to these anchors. The integration of these principles into your daily experience is where the real magic happens. If any of these affirmations particularly resonates with you, write in the comments. I embrace the flow, and share which one speaks to your current life situation. Now, these affirmations serve as powerful tools, but they're just the beginning of how we can practically implement trust in our everyday experiences. As we examine these life-altering moments, there's something profound about how our minds work with these seed thoughts. Elsie's story reveals an essential truth about our cognitive landscape. Her ability to catch those self-sabotaging thoughts before they took root completely transformed her career trajectory. What's particularly fascinating is how these thought patterns had been operating below her conscious awareness for years, silently directing her decisions, relationships, and even her self-worth. This hidden mechanism in our minds deserves deeper exploration. Neuroscientists have discovered that recurring thought patterns actually create physical neural pathways in our brains. These pathways become the default routes for our thinking, what psychologists call cognitive grooves. The longer these thoughts run unchecked, the deeper these grooves become, making them increasingly difficult to redirect. What Elsie experienced was a moment of cognitive illumination, that rare instance when we suddenly see the invisible architecture of our thinking. And that awareness itself became the catalyst for transformation. This is why mindfulness practices have gained such traction in recent years. They create the mental space needed to witness our thoughts rather than being swept away by them. Leonard's journey offers another dimension to this conversation. The words of kindness that redirected his path demonstrate the extraordinary impact our language has on shaping reality, both for ourselves and others. Those simple phrases spoken by his colleague weren't just pleasant platitudes. They were reframing tools that allowed Leonard to see himself through a completely different lens. Language doesn't just describe our world, it quite literally creates it. When we change our vocabulary, we change our experiences. This isn't just positive thinking, it's a fundamental restructuring of our perceptual framework. Leonard's transformation wasn't immediate, but those words created a crack in his self-perception just wide enough for new possibilities to emerge. The revelations from both these stories point to something we often overlook in our rushed lives. We are constantly planting seeds of future experiences through our current thinking. Every thought is essentially a prediction about reality that our minds then work to confirm. This confirmation bias operates silently in the background, filtering information to support our existing beliefs, whether those beliefs serve us or not. What's particularly powerful about recognizing these thought seeds is that it gives us back our agency. Rather than being passive recipients of whatever thoughts happen to pass through our minds, we become active gardeners, carefully selecting which thoughts to nurture and which to release. This mental gardening is perhaps the most important work we'll ever do, though it remains largely invisible to others. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how these thought patterns connect to our identity. When certain thoughts become habitual enough, they don't just influence our behavior, they become woven into our sense of self. This identity-level programming is why simple positive affirmations often fail to create lasting change. We need to address the deeper narrative of who we believe ourselves to be. Both Elsie and Leonard had to navigate this. territory of identity reformation. They weren't just changing their thoughts, they were fundamentally revising their stories about themselves. This inner journey requires both courage and persistence, as our existing identity will resist revision, even when that revision would clearly benefit us. Our minds crave consistency, even at the cost of our growth. If you've ever felt this inner resistance when trying to change a habit or belief, you're experiencing what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, that uncomfortable feeling when new information conflicts with existing beliefs. This dissonance isn't something to avoid, it's actually the doorway to transformation. The moments of greatest discomfort often precede our most significant breakthroughs. If any of these insights about thought seeds and identity resonate with your own experience, write Mindset Gardener in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have already been consciously tending to your mental landscape. When we truly grasp that our thoughts are like seeds planted in the garden of reality, everything shifts. This understanding fundamentally transformed how I approach my daily life. Just as a gardener wouldn't randomly scatter seeds without consideration for what might grow, we shouldn't allow our thoughts to run wild without awareness of what they might create. I've discovered that those fleeting moments of self-doubt, those whispered, "I can't do this," or "this is too hard" thoughts, aren't just momentary mental events. They're actively shaping your future reality. The science behind thought patterns reveals that neurons that fire together wire together, creating pathways in our brain that become increasingly automatic over time. Your habitual thoughts literally carve out neural superhighways that your mind travels down with less and less resistance. This revelation brings us to the practice of positive affirmations, which I initially approached with skepticism. How could simply repeating phrases to myself actually change anything tangible in my life, I wondered. But the journey behind the scenes of this practice revealed something fascinating. When you consistently repeat positive statements like, "I am capable of handling whatever comes my way," or "I attract abundance effortlessly," you're not just engaging in wishful thinking, you're rewiring your brain's default pathways. The hidden truth here lies in consistency. A single affirmation spoken once won't create meaningful transformation. It's the daily practice, the repetition that might seem mundane or even silly at first, that gradually shifts your mental landscape. I recommend setting aside 5 minutes each morning, perhaps while looking in the mirror or during your commute, to repeat your chosen affirmations with genuine feeling and conviction. What makes this practice powerful isn't just the words themselves, but the emotional weight you give them. Empty repetition without belief is like planting seeds without watering them. The impact comes when you allow yourself to feel the truth of these statements, even before external evidence appears. This creates what psychologists call a cognitive dissonance. When your current reality doesn't match your affirmed beliefs, your subconscious mind works to resolve this gap, often by creating opportunities and noticing possibilities that align with your new self-concept. I've witnessed remarkable shifts in my own mindset journey through this practice. Areas where I once felt blocked or limited began to open up, not because the external world magically changed overnight, but because my perception, my readiness to see and seize opportunities, fundamentally altered. The decisions we make from this renewed mindset differ dramatically from those we make from a place of limitation. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how these thought patterns not only reshape our internal landscape, but actually influence how others perceive and respond to us. There's fascinating research on how our self-concept radiates outward, creating subtle but powerful ripples in our interactions. When we consistently affirm our worth, capability, and abundance, we unconsciously shift our body language, tone of voice, and energy in ways that others can sense, even if they can't articulate exactly what's different about us. This isn't mystical thinking, it's the science of human connection and perception. Our brains are constantly scanning for cues from others, and when we've reprogrammed our own thought patterns through affirmations, we broadcast different signals to those around us. Leaders who have mastered this understand that their internal dialogue shapes their external influence more than any technique or strategy ever could. If you've experienced a shift in your reality after changing your thoughts, type "gardener of my mind" in the comments. I'd love to hear about your personal revelations with this practice. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic of surrender because it's arguably the most transformative lesson Mabel experiences. This is where the true revelation happens, when Mabel finally understands that fighting against life's current is what's been exhausting her all along. Think about it. Throughout the entire film, Mabel has been trying desperately to manage every aspect of her existence: her career trajectory, her relationship with Bruno, even the timing of her grief. She's been swimming upstream, arms flailing, muscles burning, wondering why everything feels so impossibly difficult. This struggle isn't unique to Mabel. It's a reflection of our collective journey through life's unpredictable waters. There's this beautiful scene at the 1738 mark where we see Mabel's face soften as she finally releases her grip on what she thought her life should be. The cinematography here is absolutely brilliant. The lighting shifts from harsh contrasts to a gentle glow as she exhales years of resistance. It's like watching someone put down an impossibly heavy burden they've been carrying for so long, they forgot it wasn't part of their body. This surrender isn't about giving up or becoming passive. That's the misconception many of us have about letting go. What Mabel discovers, and what the film articulates so beautifully, is that surrender is actually an active choice, perhaps the most courageous one we can make. It's acknowledging that we are part of something larger than ourselves, something we can't always understand or control. At 1805, the film gives us that stunning metaphor of the river current. The director doesn't beat us over the head with it. Instead, we see Mabel standing at the edge of a stream, watching leaves drift effortlessly with the flow. It's a simple visual, but it carries the weight of the entire narrative. The contrast between her previous rigid posture and the fluid movement of nature speaks volumes about the hidden truth she's discovering. What makes this moment so powerful is that it doesn't promise Mabel a perfect life after surrender. It doesn't suggest that floating with the current means avoiding all rocks and rapids. Rather, it offers a different relationship to the journey itself, one where resistance isn't the default response to every unexpected turn. The mindset shift Mabel experiences here is something I find myself returning to in my own life whenever I feel that familiar tension of trying to force outcomes. There's something profoundly liberating in recognizing when we're exhausting ourselves by fighting against reality instead of working with it. This isn't just philosophical musing, there's a tangible impact to this approach. When we stop expending energy on resistance, we suddenly have so much more available for creativity, connection, and genuine presence. Mabel's face in this scene tells that story without a single word of dialogue. We can literally see the space opening up within her. If you're watching this film and finding yourself nodding along with Mabel's realization, drop a comment saying, "I'm learning to float too." I'd love to know how many of us are on this same journey of discovering when to paddle and when to simply trust the current. When we start to integrate the practice of allowing opportunities rather than chasing after them, something remarkable happens in our energy field. Mabel's transformation really illustrates this beautifully. She went from being someone who was constantly pushing, forcing, and maneuvering circumstances to someone who learned to stand in her power and magnetize what she desired. The shift wasn't immediate, Mabel told me. For weeks it felt like I was betraying everything I'd been taught about hard work and hustle. But then something strange happened. The less I chased, the more that came to me naturally. This is the paradox that many of us struggle with on our manifestation journey. We've been conditioned to believe that value comes from struggle, when in reality, resistance is often what blocks our natural abundance. I want to share a powerful meditation practice that helped Mabel and countless others release this resistance. I call it the river meditation, and it works with the natural metaphor of water, something that never forces its way but always finds its path. Find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed. Close your eyes and begin to visualize yourself standing in a gentle, flowing river. The water is moving around your ankles, your calves, perhaps up to your knees. Feel the coolness, the gentle pressure, the movement. This river represents the natural flow of abundance and opportunity in your life. Now, notice any places where you feel yourself tensing against the water's flow. Perhaps you're digging your heels into the riverbed, or maybe you're trying to push the water in a different direction. This tension represents your resistance to allowing what wants to naturally come to you. 1 breath at a time, imagine softening those areas of tension. With each exhale, release the need to control the river's flow. Feel how much more energy you have when you're not fighting against the current. The river knows where it's going. Your only job is to stand firmly but gently, receiving its gifts as they arrive. What's fascinating about this practice is how it reveals our hidden beliefs about worthiness. Many participants discover that their resistance stems from a deeper conviction that they must earn everything through struggle. This revelation alone can trigger profound healing in your manifestation practice. The river meditation does something else too. It recalibrates your nervous system. When we're constantly in a state of chasing and striving, our bodies remain in subtle fight-or-flight mode. This physiological state actually repels the very things we're trying to attract. By practicing the river meditation regularly, you're training your body to remain in a receptive state, which is the fertile ground where manifestations can take root. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what happens when we fully embrace this allowing mindset. The journey from resistance to receptivity isn't just about manifesting material things. It represents a fundamental shift in how we engage with the universe. This shift affects everything from our relationships to our creative expression to our sense of purpose in the world. The most transformative aspect occurs in what I call the invitation space, that magical territory where you're no longer pushing, but you're actively creating conditions for what you desire to enter your life. It's like the difference between chasing butterflies, which usually sends them flying away, and creating a beautiful garden that naturally attracts them. If any of what I'm sharing resonates with your own journey of manifestation, write "flowing with the river" in the comments below. I'd love to know who among you is practicing this gentle art of allowing rather than forcing your manifestations. Franklin's journey is particularly illuminating when we think about adapting to life's unexpected turns. After 20 years as a corporate executive, he found himself suddenly downsized during company restructuring. Instead of spiraling into despair, he took inventory of his skills and passions. "I always loved cooking," he told me, "but I never thought it could be more than a weekend hobby." Within 6 months, Franklin had launched a small catering business specializing in corporate lunches, ironically serving the same industry that had let him go. What's fascinating about Franklin's transformation isn't just the career pivot, but his mindset shift. "The first few months, I kept trying to force my way back into my old life," he admitted. "It was only when I stopped fighting against the current that I started to see possibilities instead of problems." This surrender became his strength, not giving up, but giving in to a new direction that ultimately brought him more satisfaction than his previous career ever had. This acceptance of fear and uncertainty as necessary companions on any growth journey brings me to a powerful practice I've seen work wonders: mirror work. It's deceptively simple, yet profoundly effective. Stand before a mirror, look directly into your own eyes, and speak your fears aloud. Not to defeat them, but to acknowledge them. I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of looking foolish. I'm afraid of starting over. There's a remarkable alchemy that happens when we bring our hidden anxieties into the light. The science behind this practice is fascinating. When we verbalize our fears while maintaining eye contact with ourselves, we activate both emotional processing centers and rational thought centers in the brain. This creates neural pathways that help integrate these often competing systems. The result? Our relationship with fear fundamentally changes. It transforms from an overwhelming force that paralyzes us into a familiar sensation that we can carry forward without being dominated by it. I've guided hundreds of clients through this practice, and almost universally they report the same revelation. The fear doesn't disappear. It becomes a compass. When understood correctly, fear points directly to the areas where our greatest growth awaits. Every tremor of anxiety is actually highlighting exactly where we need to go next. What's particularly powerful about this mirror work is that it acknowledges a fundamental truth about human nature. Resistance creates persistence. When we fight against our fears, we paradoxically strengthen them. But when we stand in witness to them, neither indulging nor suppressing, they begin to lose their stranglehold on our decisions. This isn't merely psychological theory. Neuroplasticity research shows that practicing this kind of mindful awareness actually reshapes neural pathways, creating what scientists call response flexibility, the ability to pause between stimulus and reaction, allowing for more conscious choice. It's in this space that our true freedom lies. And here's where the hidden truth emerges. What we resist most vigorously is often where our greatest potential lies dormant. The very areas that trigger our strongest fears frequently point directly to our unique gifts and contributions. I've seen this pattern play out repeatedly across different life circumstances, from career transitions to relationship dynamics to creative endeavors. Now, I want to go even deeper into this concept by examining how our resistance patterns form in the first place, and why understanding their origins can be the key to unlocking new possibilities in our lives. The journey toward authentic growth isn't just about overcoming obstacles. It's about recognizing how those very obstacles have shaped us into who we are today, and how they might be pointing toward who we're meant to become. If anything I've shared about fear and resistance resonates with your experience, type "I'm ready to face the mirror" in the comments below. Our perception truly shapes our reality. When Harvey first started noticing how his outer circumstances mirrored his inner world, it wasn't some mystical revelation, it was simply paying attention. Think about it. When you believe opportunities are scarce, don't you find yourself hesitating to reach for them? And when you're convinced something will go wrong, isn't it fascinating how often it does? This isn't about some magical manifestation technique. It's about the subtle ways our beliefs create filters through which we experience everything. Harvey discovered this transformation in his thinking during some of his darkest moments. When his business was failing and everything seemed to be crumbling around him, he noticed something peculiar. The more he focused on what was going wrong, the more wrong things he found. The turning point came unexpectedly. I was sitting in my car one night, Harvey told me, completely defeated, when I realized I had been rehearsing failure in my mind for months. I had been expecting things to go wrong, and they obliged. This revelation wasn't the end of his struggles, but it marked the beginning of a different relationship with them. What Harvey tapped into was something neuroscience now confirms. Our brains are constantly filtering information based on what we prime them to look for. It's like when you buy a new car and suddenly see that same model everywhere. They were always there. You just weren't tuned to notice them before. Now, let's talk about Stanley's journey with fear, because this is where many of us get stuck. Stanley used to see fear as an enemy, something to fight against, or worse, something to run from. His breakthrough came from a completely unexpected source, a rock climbing trip he almost cancelled. Standing at the base of that cliff, Stanley felt that familiar tightening in his chest, the shortness of breath, the voice in his head screaming for him to turn back. But his guide shared something that would forever change his relationship with fear. Fear isn't telling you to stop. It's alerting you to something important, something worth your attention. This hidden truth shifted everything. Stanley began seeing fear not as a wall, but as a doorway, a signal pointing toward growth. "Every time I feel afraid now," Stanley explained during our conversation, "I ask myself what this fear is trying to protect, and what might lie on the other side if I move through it thoughtfully." The impact of this mindset shift was profound, but not immediate. Stanley still feels fear. That's not the point. The difference is in how he interprets it. Instead of seeing fear as evidence that he should retreat, he now sees it as a natural response to stretching beyond his comfort zone. I've seen this same pattern behind the scenes in the lives of countless successful individuals. They haven't eliminated fear. They've reinterpreted it. They've developed a different relationship with discomfort. What looks like fearlessness from the outside is often just a different understanding of what fear means. Consider this. What if the fears you're experiencing right now aren't warnings to retreat, but invitations to grow? What if they're simply signaling the edge of your current abilities, the very place where growth happens? For both Harvey and Stanley, these revelations weren't about denying reality, but about seeing it more completely. They learned to recognize when their interpretations were limiting rather than informative. They discovered that circumstances don't determine outcomes nearly as much as how we respond to them. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how we can practically apply these insights in moments when our emotions are running high. Because understanding these principles intellectually is one thing, putting them into practice when you're in the heat of challenge is entirely another. If any of these insights have resonated with your own experience, drop a comment saying, "This mirror reflects my journey." I'm curious to know how many of you have noticed these patterns in your own lives. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic of fear transformation. This is where the true revelations begin to unfold. When we learn to embrace fear rather than run from it, something remarkable happens in our psychological landscape. Fear, at its core, isn't just an emotion to overcome. It's a powerful compass pointing directly toward our untapped potential. Think about the last time you felt that flutter in your chest before doing something that scared you. That sensation isn't your body telling you to retreat. It's activating your awareness. It's highlighting a boundary where growth lives on the other side. The most significant journeys in human history, both collective and personal, began with someone stepping into that uncomfortable space. The hidden truth here is that fear doesn't diminish with avoidance. It compounds. Each time we back away from what frightens us, we send a subtle message to our subconscious. This is too big for me. And our mind, ever loyal to our decisions, makes that belief stronger. The pathway to transformation begins when we flip this narrative. When working with clients experiencing debilitating anxiety or phobias, I often introduce them to what I call incremental exposure, meeting their fear in small, manageable doses. One client, terrified of public speaking, began by simply standing silently on stage for 30 seconds. No words, just presence. The next week, introducing herself. Small steps that, over time, completely rewired her relationship with fear. This approach isn't about becoming fearless. That's actually not the goal. The mindset shift happens when we become fear-informed rather than fear-controlled. We acknowledge what scares us as valuable intelligence rather than a warning to retreat. Your fears are essentially highlighting what matters most to you. Fear of rejection, that shows you value connection. Fear of failure, that demonstrates you care about achievement and impact. Fear of speaking up, that suggests your words and opinions matter deeply to you. When reframed this way, fear becomes less of an obstacle and more of a guide. The neurological impact of this reframing is profound. Studies in neuroplasticity show that when we consistently approach rather than avoid fear-inducing situations, we create new neural pathways. The amygdala, our brain's fear center, becomes less reactive over time. We're literally reshaping our brain's architecture through these brave choices. I've witnessed this journey countless times. People who once organized their entire lives around avoiding certain fears eventually find themselves teaching others how to overcome those very same challenges. One client who could barely leave her house due to social anxiety now leads community workshops. The transformation wasn't immediate, it never is, but it was inevitable once she committed to the process. What's particularly fascinating is how this ripples into every area of life. As you develop courage in one domain, that confidence mysteriously transfers to others. It's as if the brain generalizes the lesson, I can do hard things. This creates a positive feedback loop where each brave act makes the next one slightly easier. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard described anxiety as the dizziness of freedom. That discomfort we feel when facing our fears is actually the sensation of standing at the threshold of possibility. It's the recognition that we could choose differently, act differently, become different. So I encourage you to identify one small fear you might be willing to approach differently this week. Not to conquer it immediately, but to begin a conversation with it. What is this fear trying to tell you? What growth might be waiting on the other side? If this perspective on fear resonates with your experience, write in the comments, "Fear is my compass." I'd love to hear how you're navigating your relationship with fear and what it's revealing about your path forward. The beauty of understanding consciousness is that it reveals how our thoughts aren't isolated events happening only in our heads. They're more like threads in an intricate tapestry, connecting to everything and everyone around us. The ancient Vedic sages described consciousness as an ocean, with our individual minds being like waves that appear separate but are fundamentally part of the same body of water. This interconnection explains why, when you walk into a room where people have been arguing, you can feel the tension, even if no one says a word, or why sometimes you think of someone moments before they call you. These aren't just coincidences or imagination. They're glimpses of the underlying fabric of reality that quantum physics is only beginning to validate scientifically. I remember speaking with a quantum physicist who explained it this way. We used to think of the universe as a collection of objects interacting with each other. Now we understand it's better described as a network of relationships, with consciousness being the fundamental ground of being. This revelation completely transforms how we approach our daily experiences and interactions with others. The profound implications of this understanding lead us to perhaps the most practical aspect of consciousness work: cultivating inner peace. When you grasp that your state of consciousness literally shapes the reality you experience, inner peace becomes not just a personal preference, but a creative responsibility. Think about it. How different is your perception of the world when you're anxious versus when you're calm? The exact same circumstances can appear as overwhelming problems or interesting challenges depending solely on your internal state. This isn't positive thinking. It's recognizing that the lens through which you view reality determines what you see and consequently how you respond. The journey toward inner peace isn't about escaping life's difficulties. Rather, it's about developing a relationship with yourself that allows you to respond rather than react, to create rather than complain. Meditation, mindfulness, breathwork, these aren't just self-care practices. They're technologies for consciousness transformation that have been refined over thousands of years. I've witnessed incredible transformations in people who committed to even simple daily practices. One business executive I worked with described how her 10-minute morning meditation completely changed her leadership style. "I used to pride myself on my ability to multitask and make quick decisions," she told me. "Now I realize I was just scattered and reactive. The spaciousness I've found in my mind has translated into better decisions and more authentic connections with my team." What's extraordinary about consciousness work is that, unlike other forms of development, you don't need to acquire anything new. The peace, clarity, and wisdom you seek are already present within you. They're your natural state when the mental noise subsides. This recognition brings a profound sense of relief. You're not broken and in need of fixing. You're just disconnected from aspects of yourself that await rediscovery. Now, I want to go even deeper into the practical applications of these consciousness principles, because understanding is only valuable when it translates into lived experience. The journey from intellectual comprehension to embodied wisdom requires bridges, specific practices that allow abstract principles to become tangible realities in your everyday life. What fascinates me most about this work is how the subtlest shifts in awareness can create the most significant changes in our lived experience. Sometimes the most powerful transformation comes not from doing more, but from removing the obstacles to what's already trying to emerge naturally through you. If you're resonating with what we've explored so far about consciousness and its role in shaping our reality, type "I see the connection" in the comments below. Vision expansion is exactly where I want to take our discussion next. You see, most people live their entire lives inside a self-constructed box of limitations. These aren't physical walls, but mental constraints that whisper "you can't" or "that's impossible" whenever we approach the boundaries of our comfort zone. I call this the perception prison, a jail cell we've built ourselves without realizing we also hold the key. When I first began exploring human potential, I was struck by how often our perceived limitations are completely arbitrary. Think about Roger Bannister breaking the 4-minute mile in 1954. For years, medical experts insisted running a mile in under 4 minutes was physically impossible, that the human heart might explode from the exertion. Yet once Bannister shattered this impossible barrier, dozens of runners accomplished the same feat within just a few years. Nothing changed about human physiology. What changed was perception. This revelation becomes even more profound when we look at extraordinary individuals who've transcended what most would consider absolute limitations. Consider Wim Hof, who can withstand freezing temperatures that should cause hypothermia, or memory champions who can memorize thousands of random digits after hearing them just once. These abilities aren't supernatural. They're demonstrations of what becomes possible when we remove artificial ceilings from our thinking. The transformation begins with a simple but powerful question: what if my limitations aren't real? This isn't about positive thinking or empty affirmations. It's about genuine inquiry into the nature of your perceived boundaries. When you start investigating these limits with genuine curiosity, you'll discover many are simply inherited beliefs, past failures misinterpreted as permanent conditions, or societal programming you've unconsciously accepted. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how the universe itself operates according to principles that support this boundless thinking. Physics teaches us that at the quantum level, particles exist in states of pure potential until observed. In a very real sense, the act of observation, our conscious attention, helps collapse these possibilities into concrete reality. This isn't mystical thinking. It's cutting-edge science that suggests consciousness itself may be fundamental to how reality forms. The hidden truth here is that most people severely underestimate how much their perception shapes their experienced reality. When you expand your vision, when you allow yourself to consider possibilities that exist beyond your current thinking, you're not just dreaming bigger, you're actually aligning yourself with the fundamental nature of the universe, which is limitless potential awaiting direction. I've witnessed this journey countless times in people I've worked with. One client, a woman in her 50s, who believed her creative years were behind her, began questioning this narrative. 6 months later, she launched her first art exhibition to significant acclaim. Nothing changed about her talent or abilities. What changed was her vision of what remained possible. The impact of this vision expansion ripples through every aspect of life. Relationships deepen when we stop limiting how much connection is possible. Careers transform when we question artificial ceilings on our potential. Even physical well-being improves when we stop accepting limiting stories about aging, recovery, or vitality. Behind the scenes of every major breakthrough in human history, whether personal or collective, you'll find this same pattern. Someone who refused to accept the prevailing limitations of their time. Einstein's thought experiments that led to relativity, Marie Curie's persistence in radioactivity research despite being told women couldn't be scientists, or an entrepreneur seeing opportunity where others see only problems. As we explore the universe's endless possibilities, remember that your vision creates the container for what you'll allow yourself to experience. Expand that container, and reality has no choice but to fill the newly created space. If any of this resonates with how you've been thinking about your own potential lately, write "Unlimiting Myself" in the comments below. When we truly allow our dreams to grow beyond our initial vision, something remarkable happens. We begin to see possibilities we simply couldn't perceive before. This isn't just positive thinking, it's an actual expansion of our consciousness. I've noticed this transformation in my own journey. Dreams that once seemed fixed and finite have blossomed into experiences far more magnificent than I could have imagined, precisely because I stopped constraining them with my limited perspective. Think about it this way. When you plant a seed, you might have a general idea of what the tree will look like, but you can't possibly anticipate every branch, every leaf, or how it will dance with the wind decades from now. Our dreams work similarly. They have their own intelligence, their own evolutionary path that often exceeds our initial blueprint. What's fascinating is how this openness to expanded possibilities creates a feedback loop. As you witness your dreams evolving beyond your expectations, you naturally become more willing to release control in other areas. It's a beautiful unraveling of the illusion that we ever had total control in the first place. This brings me to perhaps the most counterintuitive truth I've discovered. Surrender actually precedes serenity. We've been conditioned to believe that peace comes from having everything under control, but the deeper reality is quite the opposite. When we surrender to the universe's rhythm, to the intelligence that orchestrates galaxies and ecosystems, we tap into a profound current of serenity that cannot be manufactured through force or manipulation. This surrender isn't passive resignation, it's active alignment. It's recognizing that you're part of something vastly more intelligent than your calculating mind. It's trusting the same force that knows how to turn an acorn into an oak tree and a caterpillar into a butterfly. I remember struggling with this concept for years. The breakthrough came during a particularly challenging period when nothing was working out according to my plans. Exhausted from pushing against the current, I finally let go, not out of defeat, but out of a deep recognition that my resistance was the very source of my suffering. In that moment of surrender, the serenity I had been chasing rushed in like a tide. The hidden truth. Here is that alignment with the universe isn't something you achieve. It's something you allow. Your natural state is one of harmony with the larger rhythms of life. It's only our conditioned patterns of control and resistance that create the illusion of separation. This revelation transforms how we approach not just our dreams, but our entire journey through life. When obstacles appear, rather than immediately trying to bulldoze through them, we can pause and ask, what's the wisdom in this? Resistance. What am I being guided toward or away from? How might this apparent obstacle actually be redirecting me toward something better? The cosmic joke is that what we think stands in our way often becomes the way itself. The detours and delays that frustrate our plans frequently lead to unexpected encounters, insights, and opportunities that our limited vision couldn't have anticipated. As you practice this deeper alignment, you'll notice synchronicities increasing. The right people, resources, and circumstances start showing up with an almost mysterious precision. This isn't magical thinking. It's what naturally happens when you stop interfering with the intelligent flow of life and allow yourself to be carried by currents larger than your individual will. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this alignment creates not just external shifts, but profound internal transformations that ripple through every aspect of your existence. If what I've shared resonates with something you've experienced in your own life, write in the comments, "The surrender changed everything." I'd love to hear about your own journey with letting go and finding that deeper alignment. If you've made it this far with me, I believe this message found you exactly when you needed it. The journey of surrender isn't just a concept. It's a living practice that transforms everything it touches. If something in this video sparked recognition in your own experience, I'd love to hear about it. Drop "The surrender changed everything" in the comments and share a glimpse of your own journey if you feel called to. This conversation doesn't have to end here. If this resonated with you, that gentle tap on the like button helps others discover this message too, not just supporting the channel, but extending this ripple of awareness to those who might need it most. And for those ready to go deeper, I've created another video exploring how this surrender practice transforms your relationship with uncertainty. It's waiting for you right here. Click through when you're ready to continue this exploration together. Until next time, remember that your natural state is one of profound alignment. Everything else is just temporary forgetting.